It's 4 o'clock. All right, we'll call it December Leyton Public School Board meeting to order. Open meetings poster is on the window over here. Meeting notices were in the Sydney paper at both offices and the various businesses around town. Can we do a roll call, please?
Mr. Benish?
Here.
Mr. Borges?
Here.
Mrs. Ernst is absent. Mr. Rushman?
Here.
Mr. Shoemaker is absent. Mr. Wiedemann?
Here.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Here.
Mr. Jones?
Here. Yeah. Ask for your to stand and pledge allegiance.
It's over here now.
There.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Guess you really notified me for that. I wondered why nothing was happening. I ask for approval of the agenda.
So moved.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Mr. Rushman?
Yes.
Mr. Wiedemann?
Yes.
Mr. Benish?
Yes.
Mr. Borges?
Yes. Hearings and persons to address the board, I don't think we have any. Special presentations to the board. Rauner and Associates on the audit.
Okay, I'm at the very front.
Yes, you are.
Oh, no, can I stand back here or where do you want me?
Wherever
You
feel
can stand wherever you want. I can turn it.
Well, here, I'm gonna come up here and sit, if that's okay.
Yeah.
And then I can look through my papers. Okay, so I think you have the 23-24 audit, and I'm Julie Peets from Rauner and Associates, and I've been up here a few times. So I just want to point out that this year, you as board members were glad to hear that the audit had an unmodified opinion, and so that's a clean opinion, so that's good. And we'd like to thank Mr. McLaughlin and Janella and her staff for assisting us with their work. And then also, we always report on compliance and internal controls. And our compliance this year was if you were within budget, if you had enough collateral based on your deposits, if your payroll liabilities were made and on time, and also if you had any deficit dollar amounts in your funds. And we didn't have any compliance issues at all, except for we had a letter in your audit there. It's a loose letter, and you can see on page 2 of it was just stapled and inserted inside. And the management points that we had at the conclusion of the audits was that the depreciation fund had a net loss of $11,963. And we know that the depreciation fund is a component of the general fund, and so sometimes you move money over there, sometimes you move it back. So, and we know that you had cash at the beginning of the year to finance that. And so this is just current income, current expenses. So we'll talk about that here. And then the other note we always have is a lack of segregation of duties, and we know that Janelle is very efficient and her office. But probably 97% of the school districts and entities in the state of Nebraska have lack of segregation of duties. So you could employ enough people, but probably one person would spend the whole day checking what everyone else did, and it's not too cost effective. So we just always encourage the board to ask questions, look at the financial statements, review the bills, and be very involved. And I think that you do that now as a good board. So. Anyway, and then I also want to direct you to, and now we're into the audit, the regular bound copy, to page 6. And this is part of what we call the management and discussion. And this has good comparisons from the prior year to this year. So on page 6, I want to point out to you that you began the year with $3,076,041 in assets, and you ended the year with $3,210,843. So you had an increase this year, or a net profit of $134,802. And you can see on page 6 that last year you had an increase of $453,711. And I just want to point out, you can see the receipts and the disbursements. Your program receipts were up this year, and your property taxes were up this year, and your state aid was up this year also. And your state aid was also up, so you can see the two comparisons there. And so revenue was up $240,198, but then we dropped down to disbursements, and your disbursements had an increase of $559,107. And you can kind of look through there and see the biggest change probably was in your instructional and support services and operations and maintenance. And then you had more expenditures in school nutrition and a little less in the federal programs. And that's understandable because you're coming off of COVID, where we had enjoyed a lot of grant money and lunch money there. So bottom line, good report is that you had a net increase in position of $134,802. So then I would direct you to page 12.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So what goes into the other category on disbursements?
In disbursements, it's mostly, I'll point you to, and there'll be, that's kind of a summary. If you go to page, we'll go to like Schedule G. If you go to page 25, you'll see it more, a bigger breakdown. So other would include interest, contributions, donations, local revenue, preschool tuition. So on page 25, it kind of show you what was in other. And then also, that would also include the county sources too, of county fines and licenses. Okay? So the reports farther in the back are a little bit more detailed, so
Okay,
that helps
thank
you a
you.
little bit more. So if you go to page 12, and this is your fund report. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I came direct from Hastings.
Oh. You don't carry those?
I brought my computer. The last thing Janella told us at the last meeting, don't forget your audit.
It's your homework, yeah. Okay, so on page 12, you can see general fund, employee benefit fund, school nutrition, activity, depreciation, special building. And so this is income for the year and expenses for the year. And then you can see on the bottom line, you have fund balances beginning and fund balances ending. And that fund balances beginning is your cash at the beginning. So as you go over to the depreciation fund, you can see there's a loss of $11,963, but you started the year with $271,110. So we have to comment if there's any losses in a fund, but as I said, it'd be different. All of your funds have positive balances at the end of the year, and that's the important part. So your general fund had net income of $270,083 at the end of the year, and then you transferred out $260,000, and so $110 went to the school nutrition fund, $50 went to the activity fund, and $100 went to the depreciation fund. And we had a lot of experience this year with schools because of the late payments that were made for COVID and some of the state money. People were moving money from different funds to try and meet their expenses. And so we just want to remind the board that when you have transfers in and out, that we'd like to have it board action, approved by board action, and included in the board minutes. So I think you usually do that too. So just so that we can keep track of all that movement. And then, so after the transfers, the general fund had a positive profit of $10,083. You see the employee benefit fund had a profit of $2,580, and that's basically employee benefits coming in, from payroll, and then you paying them out. So that's a timing issue. School nutrition had a deficit of $107,995. The district moved in the $110,000, and so they ended the year with $2,005. Activity fund ended the year at $18,686. We talked about the depreciation fund, and the special building fund had a positive income of $113,411. And so I just want to talk a little bit about your tax levy and your taxes, because it's always important on your special building fund to make sure that you levy enough to maintain that you can meet your payments and expenses in there. And so for your valuation, from 22 to 23, your valuation increased by 22 million or 5.18%. And then your levy had a small decrease of 0.68. So if you go to page 7 of the audit, we comment there on your levy. And so you really had a pretty, you decreased general by 1.82, and your special building fund had an increase of 0.0224. So net total change in your levy was 0.68%, but because of the increase in your valuation, you saw an increase in your property tax revenue. So we talked about the transfers. So then I'll talk about the graphs that I handed out here. And the first one we'll talk about is the line graph, this one. And you can see in the left-hand corner, it's general fund net profit, and this is over the last 5 years. And the blue line is your regular net income, and then the red line is after your transfers. And as we talked about, your transfers were a total of $260,000 this year. So you can see the red line, and we talked about you're at $10,083, so you're just about even net profit. So you can see as this trend is, we see this a lot in the schools. I mean, in 1920 it was down and people gained a little bit, and then we stepped back a little bit this year. But I think a lot of that had to do once again with the COVID money and school lunch. So then off to the right, you can see your nutrition fund net profit. The purple line is after transfers, and as we said, you had net profit of $2,000, and then you can see the green line is if the school lunch operated on its own. So it's pretty normal in schools. To the lower left is your net position, which if you were a business, it'd be your retained earnings. And you can see 2020 is to the far left, and then 2024 is in the purple. So your net position has increased over the last few years. Small, but you're making progress, okay? And then the next chart is your cash available on hand, and that's kind of been an issue this year, and we wanted to go over. So the blue line is the recommended 3 months, and then the red line is general fund only. And so what we do is we say that you should have 3 months on hand. We take your total expenses for the year, divide it by 12. And so the general fund would have approximately 4.02% on cash on hand, which is good because we recommend 3. And then if you add the amount with the cash with the fiscal agent, that's the county treasurer. Your year end is August 31st, but everyone goes in and pays their property taxes. And so it's sitting there, and that's you're entitled to that. And so this year, your cash with fiscal agent was $798,000 sitting there, down a little bit from the year before. But if we add that in, you have 6.15%. And then if we do district-wide, which is the green, actual district-wide, you have 5.96 months on cash reserve and 7.94 with cash with fiscal agent. So you're in a good point with your cash on hand. And but this is kind of a snapshot. This was as of August 31st of 2024. So.
But if the red is general, then the green would include all funds?
Yes, yeah. Actual school-wide, right. Yeah, so you guys are.
Available cash funds?
Yes,
Does
so that
that
would
include
be.
building?
Yes, it includes your cash equivalents, your cash with fiscal agent, and your investments. And it's all funds.
Building, special building?
Yeah, special buildings in there too. So, and then the far right is per pupil costs, and we keep track of your per pupil cost. And we used to do district, I used to do MAC a long time ago, but they changed that so much. So Banner, Leyton, Potter-Dixon, Creek Valley is kind of in your district, and then statewide. And you can see we don't have the dollar amounts this year yet because they're still calculating. But for 22, 23, your cost was 35,706. Your district was 31,480, and then the statewide is 16,214.
And that daily membership is a really key part there, because that was a year we were really low on student numbers.
Yeah,
So that was my first year here, there was 128 kids.
yeah. And so, yeah, and that's, I started including ADM because, I mean, it makes a difference on
Yeah.
how many kids you have. So, and as I said, most of the schools we do go anywhere from 23 to 31. Sydney Public Schools is the only one, it was pretty close to 16,214. But you gotta remember too, they have Omaha and Lincoln in here with big enrollment, and so, yeah. So that kind of gives you an idea of where you are at, okay? And then the next page is a bar graph, and this is your general fund, and this is allocated, this is budget and actual. And so budget is the red, or I'm sorry, is the blue, and actual is the red. And as you can see, the total, you're below budget, and that's good. And you can kind of compare. I know it's kind of small, but some of the, most of them, I think, the only one maybe other programs, but otherwise you were under budget on all the areas. Then the next one to the right is your general fund expenditure comparison, and this is over the last 5 years. And 24 is the green, clear to the very far left. So as we talked about, your instruction costs were up a little bit this year, support services, administration, operations were a little bit up, transportation, and then other programs were down. And other programs include your state and federal programs, which ones again would be COVID. So that kind of gives you an idea of how your expenses are allocated between the funds and the performance that they've done over the last 5 years. So the bottom pie charts is your revenue, and it just, I think it's kind of interesting to see your sources on there. So you can see 22, 23, and 24, and you could see your local went from 86 to 22 to 82%, and you're down to 79. You did get county, but it's so tiny, they make it be 0. I've had a lot of people go, well, we get money from the county, but it's very small. So state aid, you can see, was 1% 2 years ago. Last year was 4, this year was 5. And your state, other state, 10% went up to 12. So that just kind of gives you an idea of where your sources come from. And the problem with this report is the pies aren't the same size. So, you know, I haven't figured out yet how to make some pies smaller, but it's the percentage of that current year revenue to kind of give you an idea. So, let me see. Any questions on that? So we have note disclosures. You don't have any debt. Usually at this point I report on how much debt is that you need to make payments. Leyton has no debt. And also the pension liability, there is a footnote in there, and the NPERS came out and said that they're 97.33 funded, which I think is wonderful. So if you have NPERS retirement, that's, you know, because some pension aren't that well funded. So that was a good note on that. And we also, the state Department of Ed also asked us to comment on attendance. And I know they changed it. They come in and they capture the information and load it up. But they still ask us to sample a few students to make sure that we aren't seeing any fictitious students, or you're not inflating your numbers or whatever like that. So we did that test, and we didn't find any discrepancies in there. And then we also asked Mr. McLaughlin to respond to the management points, which he did, and that was sent with the audit. That's due to the state by January 31st, and we also completed the alley cap, which is a report for work comp. So the audit was submitted to the state November 5th, and so we're good, I think, until next year. So any questions that you have?
I don't think so. I asked mine during the presentation.
All right. Well, thank you. If there are any questions, and always, if there's anything during the year that you have questions with or would like more clarification, feel free to contact me. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we will move on to reports. Student board member report is actually in the workbook this month. She thinks she needs to be a basketball practice or something.
All of the female officers.
All of them. I did not see anything in there that I questioned, so.
No, that looked good.
And they can be excused, it's fine.
Okay, perfect. Does that mean the sponsor too?
No.
Dang it.
All right, we will move to board reports. Board members that attended the state conference in November. That would be Chad and I are the ones that are here. You want to go first?
I don't care.
Go ahead.
I will just quickly talk about the 4 sessions that I went to. First one was put on by ESU 6 and 9. I'm not quite sure where they are at, but eastern Nebraska somewhere. They're doing a pilot program to offer dual credit courses for kids that want to go into teaching. And what it lets them do is get dual credit, and they can job shadow the teachers in your school, and possibly become a paid para during those hours too. So it's quite a unique thing. They're doing it with Wayne State College back there, so I'm thinking if RESU would want to contact them and maybe start something like that. I'm not sure. It's just to address the shortage of teachers in Nebraska.
Yeah, teachers. Right now, we have 2 seniors that are doing just that.
Okay?
It would be very interesting to see them kind of, to have utilized a program like that, because
It was very interesting, and I don't see why it wouldn't work. They only said, they hadn't asked any other colleges besides Wayne State if their courses that they were offering would go to other colleges. Wayne State was willing to accept their credits, so they weren't sure. Are they accepted everywhere? They're not sure. So anyway, it was very interesting. Second one I went to was the NSAA competitive balance. What they're going to do is turn sports into the wild, wild west. They're going to start basing classifications more on participation instead of population, and your competitive history, and some other factors. Like they're going to factor in how many special ed kids do you have in your school. They're going to take a look at everything, because I think it's because the Class A schools, there's some in Lincoln that just aren't competing in anything because they're not getting any kids to go out for sports. So they're not competing against the Omaha West Sides. They're not. The guy who spoke was from Lincoln North, I think, and they haven't won a football game for a while. So anyway, they're gonna start letting schools opt down a class and still qualify for playoffs. They're gonna possibly let schools opt down more than one class and then base it on participation. So I could see like a Class B or C school saying, well, we only have 20 kids out. Now, whether those 20 were the ones that made the cut or the 20 kids that went out, but they might let them move down into a D1 or.
To put it in perspective, you could have a Morrill, who's a D1, drop all in 6 men.
You could.
Where does 6-man drop
I think not. The 6 is
to?
it.
The bottom of the food chain.
So, and then they're gonna let, a school might be A in basketball, might be C2 and something else, because that's all, it doesn't matter, they're just gonna let them move wherever they want.
But haven't they always had a quota per class?
That's what it's not gonna matter.
They're gonna get rid of the number of
They're gonna look at
individuals
you.
in school.
They're gonna say, well, you got 20 kids on your basketball team. Well, is that the 20 that made the cut? Or is that, that's a little different than the Class D school. That's the whole 20 in the school. So I don't see how that's gonna work, but I don't think they necessarily care either.
Well, the numbers game,
You'll have schools moving wherever they want to compete for state titles.
Why don't they just co-op those classics?
I-
That'd be the reasonable thing, if they co-op with another school that doesn't have many kids out. Because
But there
they're
is-
Class A, they don't have to worry about going up.
But
In
the old
classification.
formula required if somebody came down, somebody else had to go up, because there was X amount per class.
So then, yeah, I don't know if you get too many C2 schools, then do you have to start saying, well, that's too many, now we don't have anybody in C1 or B? I don't know.
I mean, I could see
It's,
Bridgeport winning the state title in the class that they were at
yeah,
2 years ago, one down.
this, NSAA has approved this, but it's not gonna be implemented until at least the fall of 2025, the way I understood it, so, I don't know. Third one I went to was just 5 students from around the state, just answering questions. And it was pretty interesting to see their perspective on things. They talked about what's important to them, community support, passionate teachers. That was like the 2 big things that's important to them. It was surprising. Most of them did not feel like they wanted their phones in class. And then they also talked about different AI policies that every school has, so. I didn't know if we have an AI policy.
Yeah, just last year they came, we went with the, I don't know, one of the 4 different versions of the AI policy.
Yeah, okay. So, most of the kids there had tried it. They said it's not a tool that you use to write your whole report, but it's a tool they use to get information. So I don't know. It's probably something we're definitely gonna have to, that's out there, so.
We're definitely
It's
dealing
there.
with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then the 4th one I went to was Rule 10, and I'm like, well, Matt's job sucks. And whoever else is taking care of Rule 10, because 200 regulations to make sure your school's accredited, and staying certified, and that's gotta be a nonstop.
It's a battle, especially when, like, my first year here, we were down in PE, I think it was. So when Charles started on board, it was really nice to have our PE teacher be able to, have a PE that's recognized by the state at the high school level.
So, who keeps track of all
And it gets worse with preschool, because preschool is, kind of like their own section there, so
The NDE, that's who was there putting this on, was the department head. They said they've only ever said one school was out of accreditation. Otherwise, I think they would definitely work with you as long as they need to get you.
They work with you, but it's really complicated. It's like you have to, one position that comes to mind every time I think about Rule 10 is the librarian position. Because we have to have a librarian at the district.
At least half time.
Yeah. That position is it's tough to find.
Yeah. So a lot of the bigger schools, I think, have somebody just for Rule 10.
Yeah.
So that'd be.
And one thing that hurts the small schools too is where your class offerings. So if you offer 6 classes in English, but students don't take 2 of those classes, before you couldn't count them. So you would be out of compliance because you only had 4 instead of the 6. And they finally get back off on that rule because a lot of the small schools were like, we just don't have kids. I mean, you're
So it was
talking-
offered, but it wasn't.
Yeah, if the kids didn't take it, so like for instance, this year, we don't have anybody taking Spanish. If it was last year, we would have been out of compliance because we did not offer a world language. We did offer it, nobody took it.
Yeah.
And so,
Very interesting.
yeah.
Anyway, good conference, glad I went.
Yeah.
First session I went to was put on by Bancroft Rosalie, and it had to do with early college, high school. They are putting on a program that allows kids to graduate high school with an associate's degree in college. They have 60 credit hours when they graduate high school, which I thought was just unreal. The first year they had any kids graduate was 2023, and they had 6 kids graduate. They have 8 kids on track to graduate this year with an associate's degree. I brought it back to Matt, and I was like, it'd be really cool if we could do something like a HAL program that instituted this. But one thing they have going for them is they have a lot of teachers that are certified for dual credit. And they kind of talked about how they did that, and the teachers that teach that, they went ahead and allowed them to keep the reimbursement from the college for teaching those classes. And there was one teacher that had a pretty healthy income because of it. So, but he was dual credited in 2 subjects, so he was teaching multiple subjects. So I thought that was just a really neat thing, and it was something maybe we could look at doing. They are at a better advantage there because they do have 3 different colleges right around them they can work with. We're kind of stuck with 1, maybe 2 if we could do Chadron State somehow, but
We feel really good with the program that we have for dual credit right now. It's just expanding it to a way that's, fair to the student's ability as well, because we could sign up Everett for a college class. Some of them find out pretty quickly it's not.
and that is one thing they did say, that their guidance counselor, that's pretty much the guidance counselor's job, is they evaluate each individual student to see if they're able to do it or not. Some of them aren't, and they're excluded from the program right then and there, so. But that was really neat. Bancroft Rosalie, I don't know what their enrollment is.
Pretty small.
They're small, yeah.
They're a D class.
They're a class D, yeah.
I think they're U1.
Let's see, the second session I went to was on the Open Meetings Act. That was fun. Just a couple things. The changes in the Open Meeting Act. Public comment is required. You have to allow it at all meetings now, not just a certain amount.
Even in our committee meetings, like the American
Yep.
Civics Meeting, we have to have it.
Yep. And then they just gave us some pointers on what the minutes are supposed to say and stuff like that. There's not a whole lot to go in on that. I mean, it was good, it was eye-opening, but we follow most everything that's on there all the time that we have to follow. So, just a little bit of minute cleanup was always on that one. The third session I went to was school safety. This was put on by Norris Public Schools. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Norris, but their campus is not in a town. It is outside of
Outside Lincoln.
Lincoln. They are 3 to 4 miles from any town. So when they talk about school safety, they go in all in, because they don't have a presence. They do have a school resource officer now, and she's very good, the way you talked. But, they talked about all the stuff that they've done. I gave that information to Matt, and they went through which training was they
Well, so they did Alice training,
Alice training, yeah.
which is, we've all done kind of, I love you guys module with the locks lights out of sight. But this is more like locks lights out of sight. If he comes in, defend yourself.
Yeah.
Like, don't be a sitting duck.
That may be something that, I talked to Matt, maybe that's something we need to look at doing too. We have very able kids here and teachers to defend those students, so that may be some training we may need to bring in at some point in time. Very good, very good. And the last one I went to was Hot Topics with Jim and Karen. So Karen is one of the lawyers with KSB, Jim is one of the lawyers with Perry Law Firm. And that was the best session I went to. Chad knows why. There were a lot of people in there too. But they just, with all the stuff going around, what's going on legal-wise. And I made Matt aware of this, and I don't know if Mr. Jones is aware of this. There is a class action lawsuit for schools versus social medias. It's in California right now, and we are able to join that if we would like. I don't know what all it entails. They were gonna get in contact with them. You know, if it rules in the favor of the schools, we get a certain percentage of that money because we joined the class action lawsuit. But it has a lot to do with bullying, body shaming, all that good stuff that kids do on social media these days.
That the algorithm
Yep.
predetermines.
Yep. So, they talked about that. They talked about, of course, they went into the open meeting stuff. They went into all kinds of stuff in there, but that was really good. It was very comical. They did a really good job bantering with each other, which is kind of obvious when they're in two different law firms, but you can tell they're pretty good friends too. So those are the ones I attended. I can tell you which ones Susie attended. She went to the communication strategies and tools for districts large and small. She didn't really talk about that. Making dollars and cents in school finance, so she did go to the finance one. She went to meeting of the minds, let's get closed session right, so we already talked about some of that stuff. And unlocking efficiency, mastering paperless board meetings and staff negotiations. So I know she had some notes and stuff that she was gonna talk to you guys about at some point. So, but it was a very, very good conference.
She said she wanted to really dive in a little bit more into the Spark system and see if we can make it a little bit even better. I guess.
Utilize it more, yeah. There's so much in there that we don't even touch. So. but highly recommend you go if you get the chance. The only complaint I have is where our hotel was. Long walk.
Is, there's the legal conference in last weekend of January. You've gone to it, Raul's gone to it. It's very good if anybody's interested in wanting to go to it. I've already signed it. We get to have an idea of what new laws the state legislature's thinking about implementing it and how it impacts education. It's where I first found out about you had to use a certain method, Chuck It was like, seriously? That's state senators' main priority was map projections?
Yeah, I mean, it just used to be like, Greenland's really not that big, guys. And then you just believed them.
I think it's conferences where the political positioning starts.
All right, we'll move on to the principal's report.
All right, Mr. Lipscomb took seniors to County Government Day on November 18th. It was one-act season, so one-act performed at the MAC competition in Potter on the 23rd. The team placed fourth, and Leyton McLaughlin received an all-conference performer award. We hosted District One-Act here on December 2nd. I want to thank Deb Weezer for all of her work in organizing it, as well as Cody Gamble for his efforts. Congratulations to Ms. Weezer and the One-Act students on their efforts. Outstanding performers were Lila McLaughlin, Cadence Hawk, and Tristan Fisher.
One thing I'll say about that, that was a great day. Nobody wants to host it or whatever, but we got the new setup. It's nice to have them here and not traveling about. So if we get a chance to do it again, I definitely wouldn't mind throwing our hats in it.
And Deb was very organized.
Yeah,
and
she
got
did a
so much
wonderful
done.
job.
Yeah.
Mr. Gamble and myself attended the Six-Man Coach Association All-State meeting on December 3rd. Mrs. Victory attended the Transition Summit in Scotts Bluff on December 3rd. Mrs. Rathman attended the Places meeting through ASU 13 on December 3rd. All conference awards and all district awards are handed out. High school volleyball, first team selections were Shawnee Gamble, Zaylee Benish, Ella Haley, and Katie Pop. Sydney Fortune was second team selection for all conference. In football, we went with districts, so our first team district selections were Alec Watchorn, quarterback, Caleb Miller at center, Colt Van Allen, defensive line, and Jeremiah Hack for linebacker, defensive back. Austin Butler was the second team offensive end. And then at the all-state meeting that we attended, the following students were named honorable mention all-state. Alec Watchorn, Caleb Miller, Colt Van Ann, and Jeremiah Hyack. The winter sports for high school and junior high have begun this week with contest. And they did just Sunday, I believe, Omaha World Herald put out their all-state list, and I believe 7 of our girls were on that list. Zaylee was first team, Cadence was second, and then Shawnee, Ella, Riley, Macy, and Sydney were all honorable mention all-state with Omaha World Herald. It didn't get on this report, but it came out late.
Anything else? We'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Okay, so our school, under vision, culture, and instructional leadership, our school classifications are out from the state this year. You might have seen that on the news. They traditionally try to put that out right at Thanksgiving time so they don't get calls into the state office. It's a really strategic way for them to do that. And it's totally intentional. They don't have any worries about saying it. Across the board, our students' test results in elementary, middle, and high school receive the score of good. In order to receive a score of great, we had to have 60% of our student body pass or be proficient on the state assessment. The state assessment is something that 3 through 8 take 3 times a year, and the high school uses the ACT. I want to present more on this assessment at our next board meeting because we'll be finishing our NSCAT so we can kind of predict how we're going to do. This is an area where MTSS is looking to help our school improve. I want to mention that because we moved from a great school to a good school, moved down, and the percentage points on it were very slim. So we're at like a 59% overall. So the Jimmies and Joes, they have to show up and perform. And it's not easy to pass the state assessment, and you should be. So we need to make sure that we're consistently looking at that mark as something where we need to be in that great status. Our school data in the CIP is being updated by Mr. Jones and Mrs. Bloomkamp, so we'll have multiple years of data to help us zero in on the schools that need additional help and focus on. Evaluations are ongoing, and the Elliott walkthroughs are also an area where we continue to focus on this year as portion of our strategic plan that's holding staff accountable for academic success. I'll say a little bit more on the MTSS process. Through that process, we've had a lot of discussions at the elementary school level about putting in time during our day to make sure that we are hitting those kids that need help the most, to bump them up. So that's going to be something that we closely are looking at all times. We just want to make sure that our board is on board when we see our results. Carefully look at those and say, what are we doing to make sure we get to that 60% mark at least? We know we have a higher special education population, and sometimes we have a class of 10 with 4 to 5 special education students. That's difficult to make gains there, but we need to be in that grade school status. I think we have a great school. Under operations, resource, and personnel management, special education position needs to be filled. That's 2 options right now where we can see it. Our first potential to fill that position is with a member of our staff. If we can't get that member of our staff certified, we'll be looking for a long-term sub for that spot. I'll keep you updated on this information as the results need to replace. We'll have to replace a para if we can get this person certified. So Charles, I think she's taking her test now. She's almost done with school as it stands, but we want to get her on a provisional so we can have somebody fill that position. It's a desperate need. Safety report we'll review later in this meeting. As far as the fiscal health of the district, I feel like we're doing a great job this year as far as we're getting into December. The SUI program, the Software Unlimited, is going to be updated from now on so our board and community can see the budget documents in a similar way to years past, and we'll see that as we look at the bills. Phone system's moving right along, hoping that's completed over break. Just haven't heard a really precise timeline on that. Our guy that's the tech guy at ESC that helps us with a lot of the switches and things like that that are needed. He had a serious medical condition, so he's kind of delayed in that. And so it's not no fault of the phone companies, it's just kind of getting the guy back into health. So we'll get him going. It'll be good. Fire system is something we also anticipate happening soon as well. But just no definitive timeline on that yet. The company they've said that they're looking at early January to start work on the fire system. But I don't know how long that'll take to get all the way installed. The tankless water heater job is taken forever to complete. It is a headache and a nightmare. As soon as you think you're ready to fire the system up, we find out that we need a pump to force water up into the machine or up into the holding tank. So it has just been one thing after another with this water system. But when it's up and running, it should be fantastic. Let's see here.
Are we gonna be on budget with that thing, or
Oh, yeah.
is the cost
The quotes.
continue to go up along with the?
No,
headaches?
the quote's the quote. So we're paying for the
The guy did say that the pump, they're going to eat because they didn't
Included with the.
include it in, so that was on them.
Is that something we could have filed in the insurance claim?
on the water heater.
I don't know.
I'm not sure. I might, and we could probably go back and retroactively file on that too. So it's something that I can call and talk to the
Check on
town
that.
account. And everybody just thinks that we're lucky to have a school still. So we just want to make sure we just put it out there right away and got the thing fixed. So yeah, I'll call on the cap on that one too. It's a big deal. Roof work and Gurley is something that's moving right along. They're making a hell of a noise there, but it's going good. The insurance covered this. It is a $48,000 repair. When you go to the elementary school, you'll see, like today, they're working on making sure they're capping the ends of the building so our brick doesn't deteriorate over time. And then just replaced a ton of material on the roof. That was a big problem for us. Mrs. Nine has been able to join the school this week and start working with our first graders as their new teacher, which has been very good. I love having Sydney in. She is a young-looking teacher, so it was funny to see her walking down the hallway, and she looked like one of the junior high kids. But yeah, she's doing great, has a ton of ideas on how to make first grade hit the ground running. Her main thing in the last couple of days has just been like, that's a great class of kids. We just got to get them in a good structure and get them going, because this is definitely something that we didn't see coming. Wanted to see if board members were interested in attending the NERCA conference with me this February. This conference is meant for rural districts and their board members to receive useful information and advice from the small school side of things. I think that's the main thing with NERCA is, if you go, the food's great, that's kind of like their selling point, but it's kind of like the state association school boards meeting, but like from our
No, you
perspective,
can't,
the largest school that's in New York is
keep
probably
the
Ogallala.
big
So
counter
it's a
down
good
there.
conference to go to, and hopefully.
Is it in Kearney?
Yeah, that one's in Kearney. That'd be a great one for us to go to, because I think it's just good stuff. Policy review will begin in January. Under communications and community relations, kitchen staff hosted a really great Thanksgiving dinner, and they're gonna host a Christmas dinner this month. Local music program for the elementary is also being held in the afternoon as well this year on that last day. We're really excited to see what Sean has planned for that program. He had today, 6th grade played pep band music for our assembly this morning, and they sounded great. Like our middle school has a very vibrant group of girls that love cheerleading and dancing. That is their specialty. They love it. So they got all of our kids pumped up and ready to go for that, and then they did a couple of dances, and it was just a really neat thing for them to do. PAC is holding its Christmas store at the elementary next week, and we're excited for that opportunity as well. Under ethical leadership, the track project is something that just keeps me on my toes. Spoke with legal counsel about the project and how we continue to use the track safely, and he recommended take a bunch of pictures, try to get the track fixed. So we have a guy coming tomorrow to walk the track and tell us what his company is thinking as far as prepared to go. I don't think it repairs the track, but it could get us a little bit better of a running surface. It just keeps wasting away, so it's a tough thing to just watch and look at, and then below is my lead one.
Any questions? All right, we will move to the regular agenda. Excusing board members. Make a motion that we excuse board member Ernest and board member Shoemaker in this meeting.
Second that?
Roll call.
Mr. Benish,
Yes.
Mr. Borges.
Yes.
Mr. Rushman,
Yes.
Mr. Wiedemann,
Yes.
On to special recognition.
All the things that Charles brought up, all district, all state, all conference.
Anything else need to be added?
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Wiedemann,
Yes.
Mr. Benish,
Yes.
Mr. Borges,
Yes.
Mr. Rushman,
Yes.
All right, review, consider, and take action regarding the minutes of the November 13th, 2024 meeting. I didn't see anything in here. I would make a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Mr. Benish,
Yes.
Mr. Borges,
Yes.
Mr. Rushman,
Yes.
Mr. Wiedemann,
Yes.
Review, consider, and take action regarding claims, warrants, and transfers.
I have one question. What was popcorn theaters about?
that's Fox Theater for the gift certificate.
Gift
for
certificate.
staff that
All right,
we
that
had
makes
the last
sense.
meeting.
I asked the question.
Did you?
You did.
Geez, will all school go to movies or what?
He also asked about Power School, and that's our application process. That's our-
I still remember what we did last month. What did you guys do?
It just came up funky. I thought it would come up Fox Theater, but.
Yeah, that's what their official headline name is.
Everything looked good. It was a nice, reasonable month.
Yeah.
So
Is
I
it
would
done
make,
here yet?
Yes.
Okay, good.
I would make a motion, we approve the claims, warrants, and transfers.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Borges,
Yes.
Mr. Rushman,
Yes.
Mr. Wiedemann,
Yes.
Mr. Benish.
Yes.
All right, review, consider, take action regarding the evaluation of the superintendent. You all received that evaluation via email. Any questions, comments?
Yeah, I got a problem with him being too humble.
Sometimes the self-evaluation in our lives aren't quite close, but.
Just talked a lot about anything that was in there that I felt like was anything that was concerning. I felt like it was good to see, and everything seemed like it was kind of reasonable with the goals to improve on. So I had no questions on it. If you guys wanted to talk more about it, we certainly can.
I don't need to.
And what I liked is, about the things that they said that you did well, what you did well, like two out of the three, we thought you did well. The same thing with things that being worked on. I think we were 2 out of 3 with both. And that's good, we're all on the same page.
Yeah, I'm interested to see the change from last year. Yeah, and notice the change was positive.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, if it ever goes backwards, that'd be something to really think on. And I think just looking on it, there was a few areas that were just like, more communication. We definitely need to make sure we make those things happen. Policy review is kind of an easy one just because it's kind of built into what we're supposed to be doing anyways. On budget and planning, it's just an opportunity to just, one comment on there was just start the budget process earlier, and that's valid.
That was me.
Yeah.
I just don't think you can start it soon enough.
Yeah, I think it just kind of got to go January maybe.
Well, I just don't, it's nothing you're doing wrong, let's start it, let's get going.
Yeah. Yeah, we are our July isn't spent with 4 or 5 meetings, we can spend 4 or 5 throughout the time. Because we're pretty much narrowed down in to what we're gonna be looking at after contracts, so it's on the educational leadership part, it was just like, just continue to improve on college readiness, keep on looking at data. I think those are just really reasonable things to ask of the superintendent. On organizational culture and leadership, there's some things that just said, like, don't be afraid to put your foot down, be a strong leader, and focus on what we need to get done. And I think that those are just good areas where, you know, you need to grow and develop. I thought that was good. Yeah, so I felt like a lot of it was, it's very thorough. And I'll be honest, when I fill it out, I probably need to do a better job of just adding more documentation into it, because I don't put a ton in there, so I should probably put more stuff.
I don't know if this is the time to bring it up, but I think that the evaluation is quite redundant in its questioning. The same question is asked 5 different times.
You can say that.
You can say that, yeah.
And they need to condense that evaluation
But
for both.
I will tell you that it is better, way better and more in-depth than our old evaluation.
It's
process.
more in-depth,
Yes,
all right.
and I like it more in-depth.
Well, that's okay,
So,
but they ought to clean up the redundancy.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think that one thing that kind of, it came up a couple of times, but it was just like when the agenda comes out, and just making sure that, you know, what goes into Spark gets into the meeting. I think there's been a couple of times this year where it's been like, well, we have nothing to vote on. So those are areas where it's like glaring, like, fix that, so it's not.
What bit are you talking?
Yeah. So I think those things are just like, hit that right, and I think that's,
Very valid.
those are things that, yeah, I gotta do a better job at. So I think that it was a fair evaluation, so I really appreciate you guys taking the time to do it.
I would make a motion to approve the superintendent evaluation.
Second.
Any more comments? Roll call.
Mr. Rushman,
Yes.
Mr. Wiedemann,
Yes.
Mr. Benish,
Yes.
Mr. Borges.
Yes. Review, consider, and take action regarding accepting the 2023-2024 audit.
Julie did a great job of talking us through the audit. This thing has essentially everything in it to create next year's budget, so we can start the budget page 1 today. Or we could have started it last month, which
Well, I didn't mean that.
but I mean, page 1 is, or column number 1 is already done, so that's a huge part. And I think what she said in there being, you know, at the 3-month mark is really where we want to stay at. I know it is a moment in time, but if you look at the single sheet as we go, we're consistently a lot better than we were. So that's a part that I think we're proud of. And I think it also means, you know, we're trying to keep our expenses down as much as we can while running the school that we want our kids to go to.
So on that depreciation fund,
Oh.
the 11,000.
Basically, we bought the bus, but we didn't put as much money back into it.
Okay,
So we should have transferred 111,000.
gotcha.
But like she said, the bottom line is still positive.
Yes, okay, thank you.
So maybe the mark on that should probably be something like, if we're gonna buy a bus anytime soon, or whatever we use the depreciation fund is, the month before we looked at the bids, and we could say,
Need this.
transfer in.
Sure.
Transfer
This
this.
much, yeah.
Yep. We just waited and did it at the end of the year is what we did. So.
Yeah.
Speaking of bus, is it here?
Yeah, because it was still positive. I mean, it was still $100,000.
It's up and running?
Yeah,
Today.
the bus is here, it came in at 41,000 miles, so 40s was right on. I was really worried that we'd be stuck with the 49,999, but no, we were at the 40, it was good. Yeah, Jake drove it around today, we'll start it on the routes probably this week. We have paper tags right now, so it's, buying it from Oklahoma's a little different process, so, you know.
Okay, that's good.
Well, I would make a motion, we approve the 2023-2024 audit, or accept the 2023-2024 audit.
I second that.
Roll call?
Mr. Wiedemann?
Yes.
Mr. Benish?
Yes.
Mr. Borges?
Yes.
Mr. Rushman?
Yes.
And you can definitely tell the effect that state aid has had on our school. You know, it's good to, and when we're plus 30 or so next year, I think we'll be in an even better spot with that.
Well, I'm thinking that could really help our per pupil cost as well. I mean,
Yeah.
Because that's good. It's a big number.
Went from 128, what do we have this year, 160?
I don't think they're ever
I
gonna
think it's
count the
100.
preschool though.
Oh, they will after 3 years. And they'll be at a different percentage.
So he's
153?
153.
Yeah.
So, it's 30 kids
It is.
in 2 years, so.
That changes it.
I-
Changes it quite dramatically, really.
I like seeing that number go up, so.
Just gotta make sure we have those, we're still putting our best foot forward and,
Good students.
and really talking with our families that came up here already. And so, I mean, we had called just yesterday with somebody that was like, give me the application, let's go. So we'll keep that going.
Sam's thinking about closing down their school, heard through the grapevine. People are getting upset, closing schools.
So we're getting a lot of our inquiries.
All right.
Yeah, a little bit. We'll see how things down the road go. So that'll be very interesting to watch as the months develop.
Review, consider and take action regarding accepting the LCAP loss prevention safety report for the years 2024 through 20,250.
Yeah, so that's a mistake there. So we'll knock that one out.
I just want to accept it, we're good for that many years. I mean, come on.
Gonna be on the agenda for a while.
We may not even look at it.
So I put Lynn's report on here. She walked through and was very gracious to walk through both sides. The last guy just walked through one, not knocking in. He'd seen the building before, but this is the one. She's mainly slips, trips, and falls, hallways, all of those different things to make sure that we're kind of operating that way. Her recommendations were pretty basic and definitely understandable. She talked about the playground a little bit. She talked about numbering and labeling the exterior doors of the preschool. Then she also talked about the dishwashing machine at the girls' site as something to consider in the future. She mentioned just simple things like if you're there every day, you don't see it. So she said, like, when I walked through the kitchen, there wasn't an ABC fire extinguisher. You have your chemical fire extinguisher, but you gotta have the ABC. And then she said, just get a dish machine, better ladder solution for accessing the storage on the side of the stage. If you guys didn't know, Deb spent her entire summer this summer, not her entire summer, but a lot of the summer cleaning up the joint. It was just a disaster on the stage. But when we installed a better system for turning on and off our lights, that took off our ability to get to the stage storage area. So we have to figure out a way to have a better ladder and handrail system there. Relocate cleaning equipment in the high school, by the high school gym. So basically what she's saying is, like, you store your rebounding system back here, but it should probably be over here, so it's a little easier. If you've been back there, you know what she's talking
Yeah, the
about.
hallway, yeah.
We just don't have a lot of places for
Just don't have
things.
storage.
Yeah.
Much of-
Let's see, she said, just clean your custodial closets and make sure that your clearance of 3 foot around all electrical boxes is big. She mentioned some things about the bus barn, because we took her through everything. She said, just make sure you have all the stuff in your buses that you need, like your body fluid cleanup, and Heidi's on top of all that. She also was concerned about the outside of the bus barn and having some sort of lighting out there. But I think that's a really valid concern, because we've had, our buses get back very late and backing into a not well-lit areas. It's difficult. And then she left information, so that, like Megan Bolt, that Sean Kalady and Jay Martin, those are all people that they want you to have their phone numbers in case something happens, and we'll probably make that phone call tomorrow. about the boiler and just say, hey, this went down, cost us $20,000 to fix, what do we do there? Because that'd be something good for them to know about. So that's the alley cap. We'll have a Rule 10 safety visit as well. So Rule 10 will be the former superintendent at Baird. He comes up and does our walkthrough.
Well, I don't know if she was impressed with you guys, but I was. And I'd like to reiterate that from last month's meeting.
Yeah.
And our dinner.
It's good because we try to keep things safety first. Because if you don't, that's when the bad stuff starts happening. So I think if we see something, we try to fix it. In our Rule 10 safety meetings that we're supposed to have quarterly, we've been crossing those out by doing whole staff meetings and just saying, as a group, what do you see that's wrong? And I think that's a good way in a district our size to just get those things addressed. Because, yeah, that's the whole reason why we do it. The prop indoors and all those things have come up quite a bit. And I think we have that kind of under control now. But it's taken 3 years to get there. And it's an interesting thing.
She gave a real positive for the science room.
Yeah.
It wasn't like that 4 or 5 years ago. It was a disaster.
It's absolutely an amazing addition to the building.
Mr. Chair, I move to accept the alley cap loss prevention safety report for 24-25 to 2,200.
Or whatever.
I'm sorry.
I'll second that.
Roll call.
Mr. Benish?
Yes.
Mr. Borges?
Yes.
Mr. Rushman?
Yes.
Mr. Weedman?
Review and give the annual financial literacy report to the district.
That's a very simple document. Every year, our high school students, at some point in their high school careers, have to pass financial literacy. So law 70-whatever says you gotta report on that. So I talked to Mrs. Hoff earlier this year, 14 seniors are taking financial literacy at the high school, and 14 of them at this point are on track for meeting the requirements for financial literacy. There are 2 that are gonna have to make sure they get some work in, and we're hammering on them to make sure that they cross that one off the list of things to do before you graduate. It's an important class. It teaches you a ton of information, and all kids should definitely have it. I think it's a good thing for the state to have that.
And it is a graduation requirement for us.
It is now, isn't it?
Yeah, it has.
Yeah, or it has been.
It has been.
Yep, yep. It was was it this year it was required by the state?
It's coming into effect either this year or next year, I can't remember, but we've had it here for quite some time, and a lot of the smaller schools.
We don't have to approve that or anything? do we?
No, just a review.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that makes the minutes as an item moving forward each year, so that we have that. Yeah.
Record.
Yeah.
All right, informational items. Next regular meeting will be back on our normal day of Monday, the second Monday of the month, January 13th, 2025 at 4 p.m. Is there anything else?
What day?
Monday, January 13th.
Hey, thanks.
So we need a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Mr. Borges?
Yes.
Mr. Rushman?
Yeah.
Mr. Weedman?
Yes.
Mr. Benish?
Yes.
5:08.